All right, ladies and gentlemen, strap in, because today we have a lot to get into. And I mean a lot. We've got a signing that has flown completely under the radar, and I promise you, once you hear what this guy did last season, your jaw is going to drop. On top of that, the Max Scherzer story just keeps getting better and better, with new comments from manager John Schneider painting an even clearer picture of why bringing Mad Max back was one of the best decisions this organization has ever made. And then, because we never run out of things to talk about with this ball club, we've got some spring training game news, Eric Lowour updates that are going to get people talking, and a whole lot more. But before we dive into any of it, if you haven't already smashed that subscribe button, now is the moment. The support you guys have been giving this channel is absolutely incredible, and I want to keep delivering this kind of content for you every single day. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with the signing that nobody, and I mean nobody, is talking about. While the entire Blue Jays universe has been understandably focused on the Max Scherzer news, the front office was quietly cooking in the background. Per the Blue Jays transaction log, the Toronto Blue Jays have signed outfielder Mathieu Vallee to a minor league deal. Go ahead and Google that name right now, because there's a very strong chance you've never heard of this guy before. I certainly hadn't. But here's the thing. When you look at what this man has been doing in the Frontier League over the past 2 seasons, you are going to start paying very close attention. Mathieu Vallee, a 25-year-old outfielder from the province of Quebec, has spent the last 2 years tearing apart the Frontier League with his team, the Trois-Rivières Aigles. And before anyone comes at me for the pronunciation, yes, Trois-Rivières is a city in Quebec. And yes, this is very much a local hero story that makes this signing feel even more special. Last season, in his age 24 campaign, Vallee posted a batting average of .352 with an on-base percentage of .428 and finished with an overall OPS of .841. He drove in 41 runs and smacked 19 doubles across the season. Those are legitimately impressive offensive numbers for any level of baseball, and if that were the whole story, this would still be a perfectly fine minor league signing. But folks, that is not the whole story. Not even close. 83. That is the number you need to remember. 83 stolen bases in 88 games. Let that math wash over you for a second. This man stole a base at an almost 1-to-1 ratio with the number of games he played. That is not a statistic. That is a superpower. To put it in context for anyone who might be thinking, well, the Frontier League isn't the majors, so who cares? Even in a lower level of professional baseball, that kind of stolen base volume and efficiency is the stuff of legend. We're talking about a guy who is simply a different kind of threat on the bases, the kind of threat that makes opposing catchers lose sleep, the kind of threat that transforms a lineup and creates chaos every single time he gets on base. Now, let's be clear-eyed here. Vallee is not a power hitter. The slugging percentage tells you that immediately. He is not the guy you're penciling into the middle of your lineup to mash home runs. That is not his game, and nobody should expect it to be. But what he does offer is something that the Toronto Blue Jays roster has been genuinely lacking for a while now. According to Fangraphs, the Blue Jays have ranked near the very bottom of the league in base-running runs over the past 2 seasons combined. They are not a team that steals bases. They are not a team that creates mayhem on the base paths. And this signing, even if it starts at the minor league level, suggests that the organization is at least beginning to think about that dimension of the game more seriously. The year before last, in 2024, Vallee put up an even more eye-popping line at the plate, a 900 OPS with an on-base percentage of .443. The power was still not there, but the ability to get on base and then do something devastating with that opportunity, that has always been there. A French-language article translated about him describes him in perfect terms. He is, they write, an extremely fast player who sets the base paths on fire every single night. His lack of home run power is completely compensated for by his ability to get on base constantly and his willingness to be an aggressive, relentless base-running threat that forces opposing defenses to make decisions they simply don't want to make. The question now, of course, is what exactly does the organization envision for this player? At 25 years old, Valley is not someone you sign as a developmental lottery ticket the way you might with an 18 or 19-year-old. You sign a 25-year-old because you see a specific role for them either in your minor league system as meaningful depth or because you genuinely believe they can contribute at the big league level in some capacity sooner rather than later. The most likely path for Valley initially is a spot on the Buffalo Bison's roster in AAA, where he will get to prove himself at a higher level of competition and show whether that stolen base magic translates when the catchers are better and the pitchers are paying more attention. But there is absolutely a scenario, and I want fans to file this in the back of their minds, where Mathieu Vallée is the kind of player John Schneider calls up in September when rosters expand and you need a guy who can come off the bench, pinch run in a crucial late-inning situation, and send the Rogers Center into an absolute frenzy by taking off for second base before the pitcher even knows what happened. Think about Dalton Pompey and those electric stolen base moments in the 2015 and 2016 playoff runs. Remember what that kind of speed did to opposing batteries in October? Could Mathieu Vallée be that kind of piece down the line? It is way too early to say with any certainty, but the ingredients are there, and the Blue Jays clearly saw something in this kid that made them put their name on him. In a world of low-risk, potentially high-reward moves, signing a Frontier League stolen base record holder to a minor league deal is the baseball equivalent of finding a $20 bill in your winter coat pocket. The upside is real, the cost is essentially nothing, and the absolute worst-case scenario is that Valley plays some games in Buffalo and we never hear his name again. That is a bet worth taking every single time. Now let's pivot to the main event, shall we? Because while Mathieu Vallée's signing is the sneaky, underrated story of this week, the headline that has everyone buzzing, and rightfully so, is the return of Mad Max Scherzer to the Toronto Blue Jays. If you somehow missed the news, here is the quick version. Max Scherzer, 3-time Cy Young Award winner, 8-time All-Star, Hall of Famer in waiting, and one of the most ferociously competitive human beings to ever set foot on a baseball diamond, has agreed to a 1-year deal worth $3 million guaranteed, with an additional $10 million available in performance incentives tied directly to innings pitched. And ladies and gentlemen, the more details that come out about this signing, the more it becomes clear that this is not just a good move. This is an absolutely brilliant move on multiple levels. Let's start with the on-field stuff, and then get to the part that really, truly makes this special. On the mound, Scherzer comes in knowing that his role is not going to be handed to him. John Schneider has been refreshingly direct about that. The Blue Jays rotation already features Dylan Cease, who is a legitimate number 1 or 2 starter. Kevin Gausman is there. Trey Yesavage, the exciting young arm who took the league by storm last postseason, is in the mix. Cody Ponce has been given a spot. Jose Berrios is working his way back. And then there's Shane Bieber, who is dealing with some forearm fatigue and will have a delayed start to the season. In the middle of all of that, Scherzer will come in, build himself back up, and earn whatever innings he gets. There is no safety net here, no guaranteed spot. Just compete, perform, and take the ball when it's your turn. For a man who once barked manager John Schneider off the mound in a playoff game because he absolutely refused to come out of that game, you know that setup is going to light a fire under him that could burn all the way until October. But here is where the Scherzer signing gets truly extraordinary, and it is the piece that the national baseball conversation sometimes misses when it focuses purely on his ERA and his inning count. Max Scherzer is not just a pitcher. He is a force of nature in the clubhouse. John Schneider talked earlier this week about how last season Scherzer spent time in his office literally every single day. And I don't mean a quick pop-in, I mean deep, intensive conversations about pitch sequencing, about defensive positioning, about base running tendencies, about opponent tendencies, about absolutely everything you could imagine relating to winning baseball games. The man has no off switch. He is obsessively, relentlessly, almost frighteningly dedicated to the craft of winning. And when a personality like that is walking through your clubhouse every single morning, it elevates everybody around him. Think about what that means for Trey Yesavage right now. Here is a young pitcher who burst onto the scene last postseason and became a folk hero in Toronto overnight. He has everything you could want in a young starter: the stuff, the composure, the ability to perform when it matters most. But having Max Scherzer in your ear, sharing 20 years of wisdom about how to prepare, how to attack hitters, how to protect your arm and your career over the long haul, that is worth more than money can measure. The same goes for Dylan Cease as he settles into a new organization. The same goes for Cody Ponce. The same goes for every single arm in that bullpen who gets to watch how Scherzer prepares and absorb what they can from watching a legend work. And we already have real-world evidence that this dynamic works. The year after Scherzer spent time in the Blue Jays organization, this team went to the World Series. Now, nobody is giving Scherzer the primary credit for that run. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, the entire pitching staff, and about 1,000 other factors all deserve their recognition. But the culture that Scherzer helps build, the competitive standard he sets just by walking into the building every day, that is a very real and very powerful thing. And Schneider knows it. The whole organization knows it. That is why they brought him back even with a rotation that was already crowded on paper. On the timeline, manager John Schneider confirmed that Scherzer has already been throwing bullpen sessions and has been facing hitters in live batting practice before even arriving at the spring training complex in Dunedin. He was expected to arrive over the weekend, complete his physical, and then continue building up his pitch count from there. The expectation is that his season debut could come after opening day, potentially May, as multiple reports have suggested. But nobody is closing the door on him being ready sooner if his body responds the way he believes it will. Given that the 41-year-old told anyone who would listen this winter that his body felt as good as it has in years during his off-season training, maybe a little optimism is in order. Now, we cannot wrap up the Max Scherzer conversation without addressing the elephant in the room, because ever since this signing dropped, the comment sections and the fan forums have been buzzing with a very specific question. What does this mean for Eric Lowour? Look, the logic is understandable. Eric Lowour has had a solid career. He has been better than Scherzer on a pure ERA basis over the past year. He probably looks at this rotation situation and sees a very crowded room where his path to consistent starts is not as clear as he would like. And if Lowour is unhappy with his situation, it is not hard to imagine this ending in a trade at some point before the deadline. That was already a storyline before the Scherzer signing, and it only intensifies now. The spring training evidence is not helping Lowour's case either. In his most recent outing, Lowour struggled, giving up 3 hits and 3 earned runs in just 1 2/3 innings of work. Now, we always have to be careful about reading too much into spring training performances. These are exhibitions, rosters are not fully assembled, and the context is completely different from the regular season. But when you are a guy whose roster spot is already somewhat uncertain and the manager is publicly talking about competition and meritocracy, you really cannot afford to keep handing opponents runs in February. There will be people who think a Lowour trade is imminent. There will be people who think he figures it out and remains a key piece of this rotation all season. I lean toward the trade happening eventually, but let's see how spring plays out before any final verdicts are rendered. The bottom line on all of this is that the Toronto Blue Jays are an incredibly fascinating team to watch right now. They are coming off a World Series appearance. They have legitimate star power at multiple positions. They have a young pitching staff with a genuinely bright future. They brought back a legend in Scherzer, not just for what he can do on the mound, but for what he does to the entire culture of this organization. And now, quietly, in the background, they have brought in a lightning bolt from Quebec who steals bases at a rate that borders on the supernatural. Every single piece of this puzzle matters. Every single move tells you something about where this front office thinks they are going. And from where I sit, it looks like they are going somewhere very, very good. Mathieu Vallee might be the player none of us are talking about today. But mark my words, sometime between now and the end of this season, that name is going to come up in a conversation that matters. And when it does, you are going to remember exactly where you heard it first. That is all for today, folks. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel grow and reach more Blue Jays fans who deserve to hear about sneaky signings like this one. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Did you know about Mathieu Valli before today? What do you think about the Scherzer signing and what it means for the rotation? And are you buying or selling on the idea of an Eric Lowour trade before the deadline? I want to hear every single take. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you even doing? Hit that button, turn on the notifications, and let's ride this Blue Jays season together all the way to October. See you tomorrow.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.